Sankt Albertus Magnus. Sankt Albertus Magnus was a German theologian, scientist, and philosopher. Born 1200 in Swabia, Germany, died November 15, 1280 in Cologne, canonized December 16, 1931. He was a Dominican bishop and philosopher best known as a teacher of St. Thomas Aquinas and as a proponent of Aristotelianism at the University of Paris. He established the study of nature as a legitimate science within the Christian tradition. By papal decree in 1941, he was declared the patron saint of all who cultivated the natural sciences. He was the most prolific writer of his century and was the only scholar of his age to be called the Great. This title was used even before his death. Albertus was the eldest son of a wealthy German lord. After his early schooling, he went to the University of Padua, where he studied the liberal arts. He joined the Dominican order at Padua in 1223. He continued his study at the Padua and Bologna in Germany, and then taught theology at several convents throughout Germany, lastly at Cologne. Sometime before 1245, he was sent to the Dominican convent of St. Jacques at the University of Paris, where he came into contact with the works of Aristotle, newly translated from Greek and Arabic, and with the commentaries on Aristotle's work by Averroes, a 12th century Spanish-Arabian philosopher. At St. Jacques, he lectured on the Bible for 2 years, and then for another 2 years on Peter Lombard's Sentences, the theological textbook of the medieval universities. In 1245, he was graduated master in the theological faculty and obtained a Dominican chair for foreigners. It was probably at Paris that Albertus began working on a monumental presentation of the entire body of knowledge of his time. He wrote commentaries on the Bible and on the Sentences. He alone, among medieval scholars, made commentaries on all the known works of Aristotle, both genuine and spurious, paraphrasing the originals but frequently adding digressions in which he expressed his own observations, experiments, and speculations. The term experiment for Albertus indicates a careful process of observing, describing, and classifying. His speculations were open to Neoplatonic thought, apparently in response to a request that he explain Aristotle's physics. Albertus undertook, as he stated at the beginning of his Physica, to make intelligible to the Latins all the branches of natural science, logic, rhetoric, mathematics, astronomy, ethics, economics, politics, and metaphysics. While he was working on this project, it took about 20 years to complete. He probably had among his disciples Thomas Aquinas, who arrived at Paris late in 1245. Albertus distinguished the way to knowledge by revelation and faith from the way of philosophy and of science. The latter follows the authorities of the past according to their competence, but it also makes use of observation and proceeds by means of reason and intellect to the highest degrees of abstraction. For Albertus, these two ways are not opposed. There is no double truth, one truth for faith and a contradictory truth for reason. All that is really true is joined in harmony. Although there are mysteries accessible only to faith, other points of Christian doctrine are recognizable both by faith and by reason. Example, the doctrine of the immortality of the individual soul. He defended this doctrine in several works against the teaching of Averroistes, Latin followers of Averroes, who held that only one intellect, which is common to all humans, remained after the death of man. Albertus' lectures and publications gained him great renown. He came to be quoted as readily as the Arabian philosopher Avicenna and Averroes, and even Aristotle himself. Roger Bacon, a contemporary English scholar who was by no means friendly towards Albertus, spoke of him as the most noted of Christian scholars. In the summer of 1248, Albertus was sent to Cologne to organize the first Dominican Stadium Generale and General House of Studies in Germany. He presided over the house until 1254 and devoted himself to his full schedule of studying, teaching, and writing. During this period, his chief disciple was Thomas Aquinas, who returned to Paris in 1252. The two men maintained a close relationship even though doctrinal differences began to appear. From 1254 to 1257, Albertus was provincial of Teutonia, the German province of the Dominicans. Although burdened with added administrative duties, he continued his writing and significant and scientific observation and research. Albertus resigned the office of provincial in 1257 and resumed teaching in Cologne. In 1259, he was appointed by Pope Alexander IV to succeed the Bishop of Rosenberg, and he was also installed as bishop in January 1260. After Alexander IV died in 1261, Albertus was able to resign his episcopal see. He then returned to his order and to teaching at Cologne. From 1263 to 1264, he was legate of Pope Urban IV, preaching the crusade throughout Germany and Bohemia. Subsequently, he lectured at Wurzburg and at Strasbourg. In 1270, he settled definitively at Cologne, where he had done in 1252, and in 1258 he made peace between Archbishop and his city. During his final years, he made 2 long journeys from Cologne. In 1274, he attended the Second Council of Lyon, France, and spoke in favor of acknowledging Rudolf of Habsburg as German king. In 1277, he traveled to Paris to uphold the recently condemned good name and writing of Thomas Aquinas, who had died a few years before, and to defend certain Aristotelian doctrines that both he and Thomas held to be true. Albertus' work represents the entire body of European knowledge of his time, not only in theology but also in philosophy and the natural sciences. His importance for medieval science especially consists in his writing and bringing Aristotelianism to the fore against reactionary tendencies in contemporary theology. On the other hand, without feeling any discrepancy in it, he also gave the wildest latitude to Neoplatonic speculation, which was continued by his disciple Ulrich of Strasbourg and by German mystics of the 14th century. It was by this writing on the natural sciences, however, that he exercised the greatest influence. Albertus must be regarded as unique in his time for having made accessible and available Aristotelian knowledge of nature, and for having enriched it by his own observations in all branches of natural sciences. A preeminent place in the history of science is accorded to him because of his achievements.